This is the Stupid Things for Love podcast. Today I'm hanging out with the wonderful, beautiful Sean from Texas. It's funny, it's like I see so much stuff on Instagram and like a bunch of tattooers complaining about how, none of these young whippersnapper tattooers got like formal apprenticeships. They're all just like learning how to tattoo off of YouTube. And apprenticeships are a horrible idea. Sure, at one point in time, like apprenticeship was a path to tattooing, but 99% of the apprenticeships I saw was just an excuse to get free labor out of some poor, like young, hungry kid who just got abused. Like, I didn't go to college, but I've heard about like college hazing and stuff, and it's nothing compared to like tattoo shop apprentices. I remember, I've seen apprentices deal with like getting shot with BB guns, and not just like one occasion, but like daily, every day, getting like shot with BB guns, like stun guns, like go up to behind them while they're trying to clean and like hit them with a taser. I remember there was this one apprentice, I won't even say what shop, who was like deathly afraid of snakes. Like deathly, not like, oh, I'm a little creeped out, but like true, like to his core, like panic. And the shop owner, like, was like, hey, like, you got to go break down station and, room number 2. And then he walked in there and he literally like threw a snake in there and like closed the door, some little like garter snake. But dude, like, broke down the door, like ran out screaming, like thought he was going to die. And then still showed up the next day to work. Yeah. But did you get an apprenticeship or?
Not an official apprenticeship. I started just kind of doing tattoos at home, making things, and I tried to get an apprenticeship, but in my shop that was in my town, there was only one guy, and he barely, I guess had enough going on just for him, so I never never even got that far with that in my hometown. But then once I went up to New York City, I started kind of hanging out with guys who were a little more well, there was one guy in particular that kind of set me on the right path because I was doing some things wrong. And
yeah, that's kind of, I didn't have an apprenticeship, but I just got tattooed by everyone that I looked up to, and would just watch them, pay attention, and like ask them questions, trying not to offend them. And then, like Juan Puente, like if anybody if there was one person I looked up to who was like, he was definitely, like he would actually sell me a tattoo machine but Juan Puente helped me out a lot. Like I didn't apprentice under him, but he kind of was like, come here, kid, let me
show you a better way of doing that or something. Yeah.
Maybe you'll fuck up your friends a little bit less. But yeah, I remember like slow days at tattoo shops, like were bad for apprentices because there was just nothing to do except for fuck with them.
You know what's funny though? Because it's been kind of slow lately for everybody, like in general. And, whether you're selling flowers or tattooing, and it's kind of like back in the day, it was sort of, in a sense, kind of fun sometimes when it was slow days.
Yeah,
because that's when you could just kind of tattoo each other at the shop. Or, just get fucked up. Like, we would always, like, when it was slow, we were getting drunk. And, and we would all just go to the bar, and everybody in the tattoo shop would be at the bar except for the shop boy. He would be holding the reins down,
so that if somebody called, he'd come get you guys and be like, all right.
And like there was this bar that had like a window at this one shop that I worked at that was outside, so he would just like, whenever somebody would come in, the shop guy would come over and be like, okay, we got this and this. Who wants it? And we'd all have to like play rock, paper, scissors or whatever to see
who got it.
who had to go over there because we just wanted to sit there and get drunk. But,
yeah. Man. Yeah, slow days. Yeah, slow days were always an adventure. Especially because you had like, I mean, tattooers, by nature are not necessarily functional adults that fit into society. And then, you have 4 or 5 of them in a room where, all of a sudden there's no business, there's nothing to do. They all have cash in their pockets. And, yeah, I mean, there was days, there was one time maybe I can tell this story because he's dead now, but he's a brilliant guy. He was a brilliant guy. This guy, Joel Hildenberg, who I worked with, was one of my favorite people in the world. He was this tattoo artist. He was from Tennessee, and like as red as neck gets. Like the guy was just like redneck in all the right ways. But I remember he married this woman who, her family was pretty well off, and so he he found himself in a situation where he had a bit of money, and he I always watched at him and I was like, if I ever have money, like I'm gonna do it like he does it. Like I've met rich people who were just not good at being rich, but this guy was great at being rich. Like they had this building in downtown San Francisco, and I remember he took this old like 67 Malibu and had a crane put it on his roof, and we would sit on it just because he wanted to sit in his car, listen to the radio, drink beers, and watch the sunset. And he couldn't do that in San Francisco. They're living in the city in downtown. He's like, how do I do it? So he had his car put on the roof, and we'd go up there and he'd just sit there, with the 12-pack of beer, and he'd just turn the radio on and drink beer and like watch the sunset in his car.
Wow,
it was
awesome.
The best. It was one of my favorite San Francisco memories. And then I remember he was the first person I ever knew who had night vision. This was like in '99, and we'd sit on his roof and with these night vision goggles on and a pellet gun, and it started out just shooting rats in the dumpster. Like we just toss out some pizza crust down there in the middle of the alleyway and shoot the rats when they'd come and eat it. But then every now and then you'd get like a prostitute and her John kind of like coming in the alleyway to get a blowjob or something, and it ended up we just ended up like shooting people doing weird shit in the alley. But anyway, the whole point of the story is he was really into guns, and he always had a gun on him. And I remember one day it was on Clement Street, and every day on the way to lunch, we'd close the shop, we'd go get lunch, and we'd walk by this this Chinese market. It was like a fish market, meat market, but they had this whole bucket of like live frogs. And I always remember like walking, I was like, that's wild. I was like, those frogs, because everything else was like dead, it was like cut up meat, like, processed chicken. But then they had this huge bushel of live frogs. And one day we were coming back and Joel had this idea. He was like, we should give one of those frogs a chance. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, right now they're all going to die. Like they're all going to get cut up and eat. He's like, but what if we give one of them like a 50-50 chance? And I was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so he goes in there and he buys one of these frogs, and we go back to the tattoo shop, and we're sitting there with this live frog, and we're like, what do we do with it? And we're like looking around trying to figure out where the nearest pond is to let this thing go, and it's like an hour and a half away. You know what I mean? Like we find this one pond like north, and we're just like, okay, we could go here and let it loose, but it's an hour and a half away. Like, are we really going to drive this frog an hour and a half? And so he decides that there was an old Chinese bookstore above the tattoo shop that had been closed forever. And he's like, tell you what, he's like, why don't we go upstairs? We'll each take a pistol. He's like, I got 6 shots in mine. He's like, you have 8 shots in yours. And we'll let the frog go on the other end of the Chinese bookstore. And if we can hit it, in 6 shots, then the frog dies. But if we can't hit it, then the frog lives, and we have to drive it an hour and a half to this pond to let it go. And so we did. So we went to the Chinese bookstore. We like stacked all these books up on the wall to make sure we didn't shoot through the wall. And we took this frog, and they gave us a little like Chinese takeout container. And I remember we dumped it out on the other side, and then we went back, and we're like, all right, ready, go. It was like, ba, 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 ba. Things like jumping all over the place, this frog hopping around. We can't fucking hit it. So we shoot up this Chinese bookstore, and like the smoke clears, and like the sound dies down, and then there's this frog just like, like still there. And we're like, all right, that's the deal. We got to dress. So we we closed the shop for the day and drove that frog an hour and a half to let it go in a pond.
That's so awesome. I have a similar story. Me and my roommate, this is back in Brooklyn. I don't want to go too far off topic, but this is another frog,
this is it. We don't
frog in a barrel story.
Fuck topics. Let's go.
We were coming home from some bars, and this was when I was living in Bensonhurst in Brooklyn a long time ago. And basically we lived in a weird neighborhood where one side it was Chinese and the other side was Italians, and then one street over was like Hasidic Jews, right? So it was a very weird mixture of like supermarkets and like people. They had like Italian markets, and then they had the Chinese markets, and then they had like, the Hasidic Jew type, everything where everything was kosher and everything. So like we were trying to get something to eat because we were hungry, and we were passing the Chinese market, and we're like, let's go in there and just see what all they have in there, And man, they had all kinds of weird stuff, you know what I mean? Like stuff that you wouldn't even think about eating. And they had this big trash can, or this big, it's basically a plastic trash can. And down in the bottom of it were just like full of bullfrogs. Yeah. And we were like, whoa, dude, like let's buy some bullfrogs, This is like after we'd already been day drinking, and we thought it was a good idea. So we bought 2 of them. I don't remember, they were pretty cheap. They were just like a couple bucks each. Yeah. And we took them home, and we just let them go in our apartment. and these bullfrogs were just like wreaking havoc, just jumping around, knocking things over. And we were like, oh man, this is so great. All right, like let's go back to the bar, So we just left the bullfrogs to watch the apartment, and we went back to the bar, and we got more drunk. And then when we came home, we were like, where's the bullfrogs? We couldn't find them, because we were like so excited, talking about like, oh, I can't wait to get back home and play with our frogs. And then we get back home, and they were just gone. Like we couldn't find them anywhere. Finally, we found one of them, and it was like in the toilet.
Oh, it found the water.
And we were like, what the fuck, dude? But we could not find the other one.
It probably swam down.
And we were like, dude, it fucking must have swam down into the sewer. You know what I mean? We couldn't believe it, but it was just gone. We could never find it. So like a couple weeks go by, right? And I guess I was finally thoroughly cleaning the apartment or whatever. And there was like, I swear to God, because before we looked fucking everywhere for that other frog, and we couldn't find it. And then 2 weeks go by, and I'm sitting there and I'm cleaning, and I just randomly picked up this pillow, this little throw pillow that was on the couch. And lo and behold, scared the fuck out of me was that other frog.
Still alive?
It was still alive.
It was all dried and
it was all dried up, and it was like a mummy frog.
But still croaking, still going.
And I felt so bad.
Did you like put him in water and rehydrate him, and then he came back to life?
No, I didn't. I just put him out of his misery.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I felt really bad. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, I will never do that again. But,
I mean, he was gonna end up fried frog legs anyway.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever had fried frog legs, but all you do is eat just the frog leg. Yeah. 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 And the skin comes off like really easy.
Yeah, it's like a catfish. You just peel it off really easy. Yeah, it just goes
like a glove.
Yeah, we had a bunch of frog. We go frog gigging a bunch in Louisiana, and get a couple dozen of them, and then fry them up. They were good. Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other weirdos. I mean, then there's always like. I was trying to think of other tattoo shop escapades. There's like Poo Dollar. I mean, that was like the classic. I feel like every tattoo shop played Poo Dollar when it was slow.
I don't know. Like,
really?
What is the $2 one?
$2 where, like in a shop like this where there's like a storefront out
front.
Oh,
right.
Somebody goes in the bathroom and takes a shit and you wipe your ass with $1. So there's like poop on it. And then you go outside and put it poop side down on the sidewalk. And you just literally sit there and watch people be like, oh, $1. And then they pick it up and they're like, now their hand's covered in shit. And then it falls, then they're like, oh, and they run away.
We would do the one where we glue the like quarter down.
Oh, yeah. That one's good. We used to do that. But then we got like advanced with it where we'd glue a quarter to the bottom of an escalator. So like when people are coming down, they'd try to get it, but the escalator keeps moving. So like people would be piling up while one person's trying to get the quarter off. That was so back funny. When a quarter was worth picking up.
Yeah. Now people won't even pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah, there were all kinds. I mean, like the mischief and pranks. That was one. I mean, like
I got a whole black arm basically because it was slow.
Really? Just blacking stuff out?
I was just like, I was just sitting there bored and there was nothing going on. So
yeah.
Just started blacking out my arm.
Lots of dice games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lots of, we can make a tattoo machine out of this. And then, like.
And there was one of the like craziest shops I've ever worked in was in Reno, Nevada. It's funny, like now, people ask me, they're like, oh, the usual tattoo questions of like, oh, like, where does it hurt the most? And, they'll be like, where's the worst place to get a tattoo? And I'm always like, Reno, Nevada. It's the worst place to get a tattoo. I know they're like, no, I know what you meant. But anyway, there was, we were working at the shop there and making a ton of money. Whatever. I was like 20 years old, making $1,000 a day cash. And, we were going and like spending it at the casinos and I'd make $800 and then I'd go spend $800, come the next day, like make $1,000 and just go like blow $1,000 at the casino. And finally, one of the guys at the shop watched, me and this Italian buddy of mine do this a couple days in a row. And he was like, why don't you instead of like, look, you're going to blow all that money in your pocket tonight. He's like, why don't you go blow it on something where you at least get something back for it? We're like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we're going to the whorehouse after work. Like, you should come with us. And I was like, oh my, I was like a kid. Like, I was 20 years old, like I had maybe had sex like once or twice in my life. And I was like, whoa. And I really like thought about it. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've listened to enough Tom Waits. Like, I've read enough Bukowski. I was like, maybe this is like a life experience I need to have. And
it's got to be on the to-do list.
I was like, I really like thought about it because I was like intimidated by the idea and scared of it. But I was like, you know what? Like, this is like a thing that a man needs to do at some point. Like, okay, let's do it. So they brought us out to the middle of the desert, and I remember it was just like two double wides squished together. It was like these two trailers in the middle of nowhere, and I go in there, and you walk in, and the first one's kind of set up like a bar, and then there's girls just kind of like walking around, and it was me, this Italian buddy of mine, and the guys from the shop. You could tell the guys from the shop like go there all the time, and like everybody knows them, and I like. When I was 20 years old, I looked like I was 12. Like I had maybe 3 chest hairs to my name, and they weren't even in the middle. They were like off to the side. But but anyway, I remember going into this trailer, and I sit there, and I was like, "Can I get a Budweiser?" And I'm sitting there drinking a Budweiser, and my Italian buddy's like, "Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it?" I was like, "I don't know. Are you gonna do it? Like, are you gonna?" And we're not even like making eye contact with any of the girls. We're so terrified, and finally, I was like, fuck it. Like, let's do it. And so I just kind of like look up, and the nearest girl, I was like, okay, I didn't even like know what, I was like, do you want to, should we, and she's like, let's go. And so I put my beer down. I follow her down this hallway, and, she takes me in this little room, and she shuts the door behind her, and she's like, okay, what do you want? And I was like, what do is there like a menu? Like what? I don't, what? And she's like, she was like, it's $200 for a blowjob, $400 for sex. And I was like, I guess, I mean, I'll take a blowjob. And she was like, all right, $200. And I gave it to her, which later I found out it's not. It was like $100 for a blowjob. Like, you know, like I got the new guy tax. And so I give her the $200. She takes it, goes, gives it to the guy at the bar, and then comes back and she sits down and she's like, all right, take them off. And so I'm standing there. I'm like, okay, like pulling down my pants.
Around everybody?
No, it's just me. We're in this room by ourselves. And like I pull down my pants and I'm terrified. You know, I'm so nervous. And that like, you know, my boyhood is not saluting, right? You know, I mean, I'm not even at like half mast. It's just like, it's like trying to crawl inside of me.
What's going on?
Yeah, my penis is trying to get the hell out of there. And but I just remember like pulling down my pants in front of she's sitting on the edge of the bed. I pull down my pants and she just like stares at my dick and like looks at me with the most like disappointed look on her face.
Oh man.
And she kind of like takes her hand, just like swats at it a little bit. She's like, if you're not going to get hard, like there's nothing I can do, you know? And I was like, right. I tell you what, you can just keep the money, but can we just like hang out for a few minutes so that my friends think something happened? And then like, you don't have to do anything. And she was like, whatever. So she literally goes and like sits on this chair, just like painting her nails. And I sit there for like the longest 10 minutes of my life, just like watching the clock, being like, okay, now I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. And then I remember like walking out of the room, closing the door, walking to the bar, and all my friends were just like, yeah, what's up, Scotty? There you go, Scotty boy. And I was like, I want to fucking die. This is horrible.
Oh, man.
But yeah, it was not. It did not affirm my manhood in the way that I was hoping.
Dude. Yeah. I actually never had anything with a prostitute.
Really?
I had a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Because we went to border towns in Mexico all the time. And we went to some boys' towns, and it was bizarre, man. Like, this is like pre 9/11.
Yeah.
Like crazy, straight up. Like, where the fuck was that border town that we used to go to a bunch? It was El Laredo or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had basically a couple buddies that ended up getting together with some prostitutes. I don't want to name their names or anything because I think they're married and shit now. Yeah. But one of them, we were going around this little buggy. Every time I would go to Mexico, we would just get pulled around in a little buggy. It was like so old school and cool, but
when you say buggy, like a little
like a horse-drawn buggy.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I'm like a rickshaw kind of thing.
Yeah. And like there was this time when and before we went across, like we actually drove across by accident, and then we had to come back and put the truck back and then walk back. And when we were coming back across, like they just completely demolished my friend's truck, and because they thought that we were bringing drugs back, and we're like, no, dude.
Wait, we just went into the border control guys.
Yeah, because we went in the wrong line, and then we finally got back.
When you say demolish, were they like cutting up the seats, looking for stuff in the upholstery?
They took the seats out. Like, yeah, it was pretty gnarly, and I guess we all looked like like the cartel or something. Because we were like all of 16 years old. Anyways, fucking, but the guy who was tearing up our car was like, listen, you guys are going over there. I want you to have a good time, but y'all have to like follow some rules, like always stay together, never leave anybody over there. Don't buy any drugs, especially pills or anything like that. Or coke or any of that kind of shit, and he's like, and be back before dark, right? So those were like the rules, and then we went over there, and right away we're breaking all the rules by buying drugs, getting pharmaceuticals, any kind of pill, coke, fucking weed, everything. We're smoking Cubans, we're fucking doing everything, And then we ended up in Boys Town towards the end of the night, because we'd been going around all day by this horse-drawn buggy, going to different places and getting things. And so like one of my friends was trying,
and Boys Town is like the red light district, like
and the two, like me and my other friend, we were like the ones that were like the wildest, but we ran out of money kind of early on, which was a good thing kind of sometimes. And sometimes it's a good thing to run out of money, right? Our other two guys still had money, the two shy, like more reserved dudes. And then basically, I don't know, it was like we're almost in a blackout mode. Like we had to leave a couple of my friends in Mexico and go get more money. And it was already nighttime. And I remember coming back across the border and just being like, holy fuck, man. Like we already breaking all these rules, you know, like it's nighttime. We left our friends there, and we're coming all the way back across the border just to get some money to hit up an ATM. And I was just like, I remember coming across the bridge and just being really wasted and just seeing somebody swimming in the Rio Grande. And I was like, holy shit, dude, this is fucking crazy. And so we got the money, we went back. And when we went back, it was like a scene in like Dusk Till Dawn, basically.
Yeah.
Like we were in this crazy whorehouse. There's prostitutes all over the place. My friends are just like, one of my friends didn't have his shirt on and was just surrounded by prostitutes. It was like, hey, you guys came back, you know? And like, we were like, dude, like, where's our other friend? And then we found him. And then, so we ended up getting back on the buggy cart thing. And yeah, the whores there were just like, they didn't give two fucks, man. They were beautiful, the most beautiful prostitutes you'd ever seen. And they were just like trying to like grab your dick out of your pants right there in the bar and everything, man. And like we ended up back on this buggy to go to the actual, like, I guess like strip or whatever. And it was just like literally like nothing but little motel things with all the prostitutes sitting out in front of them.
All the hourly motels.
And finally, my friend picked one that he thought was really pretty or whatever that he wanted to sleep with. And so we were all sitting there waiting on him. And he was literally in there for like 2 seconds. And then he came back out and we were like, dude, like, what happened? Did you like do it? He's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's like as soon as he got rid of the bad juice, man, he just like felt ashamed and shit. And later we found out that he said the girl was so professional. She like had the KY jelly in the condom. She even put the condom on.
Right.
Put the KY jelly on, and he like went in, went out, went in, came, and then felt immediately ashamed and just ran out of there basically. But the next morning it was pretty funny because like we were all just like me and my other buddy who ran out of money were so happy. That like we ran out of money, we didn't do shit. And my other two friends took the longest, hottest showers I've ever
when you're in a hepatitis store, it's good to be the one that doesn't have any money.
Oh man, dude, it was really funny. And then when we got back to our town and all of our friends found out, they were like just blaming me and the other guy ran out of money, and we're like, yeah, you guys were probably the ones who did it. And we're like, no way, dude. We actually really didn't. It was, and we couldn't say anything because we didn't want to get our other two quiet friends in trouble. But it was the two quiet dudes.
But dude, I like from that, that was my first interaction with a sex worker at all. But then, I moved to New York years later, and I mean, my favorite clients ever were sex workers.
Definitely.
In New York, like they were the coolest people. Like, so chill, like seeing everything. I feel like in the same way, like, tattooers dealt with like the whole spectrum of humanity. Like they're just over it. Like nothing surprises them. And God, I mean, I would tattoo them basically for free just to like hear their stories.
Yeah.
About like New York dungeons and just like getting paid $1,000 to like piss in some stockbroker's mouth. And even like I remember, but on the edge of like in Williamsburg, it was right on the edge of there was literally like Broadway was the dividing line between all the greasy haired tattooed hipsters and like Hasids, like Hasidic Jews. And it's interesting, like I don't know much about Hasidic culture just from what, I observed from living down the street from, but there's so much discipline and rigidness and conservatism in that community, but prostitutes are not a problem. Like I remember like seeing, there'd be prostitutes on 6th Street, standing around, and there would just be a line of minivans with Hasidic guys, just like pulling up, grab one, drive around the corner, do their stuff in the van, and then pull back around.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And but I remember there's one of my clients was an escort, and she had a regular client that was Hasidic, and so fascinating. She was like, every Tuesday, he's my regular, and he would come to her house, pick her up in a minivan, drive her to East Williamsburg, and before she got out of the van, he would throw a blanket over her head, because like there's something about like he couldn't have her being seen going into the house. Because walking someone with a blanket over their head is less suspicious than just walking a white girl into your house. But he brought her into the house, and he would just sit on the bed and watch and jerk off and basically what he wanted her to do is like a very specific script where he wanted her to make out with his wife and play with his wife with all sorts of toys while calling him like every racial slur she could think of. So she would just like call him a bunch of things that I'm not going to say, while making off his wife, and he would just jerk off.
So his wife was involved too?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I assume she was a willing participant, but I don't know.
I always wondered, like, I was like, man, they definitely got to have something that they like.
Yeah, like that pressure seeps out somewhere along the line.
Yeah,
like,
dude. That's so cool, though.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, there were tons of prostitutes back in the day in that neighborhood. But yeah, sex workers were my favorite clients in New York, and there were a lot of like, not even sex, but just like dominatrix. Like girls who worked in dungeons and stuff that had fun stories.
I kind of feel like in general, tattooers have a lot in common with sex workers.
Yeah.
We're just
you said like
playing around with people's body fluid for hours and then getting paid.
I mean, tattooers, we are the strippers of the art world.
Yeah.
Because we get into it because we're like 19 years old and just be like, I want to dye my hair green and listen to Slayer and make what you think is a lot of money, and then, next thing you know, you're 40 years old with no health insurance and you're like, fuck, I should have been a graphic designer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm trying to tell all those kids that are dropping out of art school, I'm like, I don't know.
Like, paycheck's pretty nice. Like, yeah.
No, man. Grass is always greener on the other side, I guess, but.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah. So, they're great. And I love sex workers and strippers. Like, they're, I feel like the backbone of tattoos, you know what I mean? Because they, and we have so much in common with them. But the only thing that kind of that's a little tough sometimes is the crack smoking. Because it's like, I don't know. I've like, I don't know why they all love to smoke crack so much, but it was always a thing with like, especially when it was wintertime and you're in New York City and you have to have all the windows closed and they're just smoking hella fucking crack, man. And I would start like getting dizzy,
right.
Just from the secondhand
like
crack
while you're
smoke.
tattooing them.
Yeah. And then finally I had to tell some of them, I'm like, look, I really like coming over here and tattooing you guys. Because they would always want me to come over to their apartments and they have like a whole bunch of girls over there.
And they always had cash.
Yeah. And it was always like really late at night, wee hours, crazy times of tattooing them and shit. And they also were, I guess because they were smoking so much crack, they couldn't make up their minds of what they wanted.
But give me, I mean, I've dealt with, drunk clients. I've dealt with clients on meth. I've dealt with stone clients. I've dealt with coked out clients, but like give me what are the characteristics of someone on crack while you're tattooing them?
Well, they just like basically they're pretty normal, you know.
Yeah. Well, I know
Besides they
like with cocaine,
got
if
the
somebody
glass
comes in
pipe,
and they're
you know, they're
cocaine,
sitting there just toking away.
yeah.
But it stinks, man.
Right.
And
But do they sit still? Are they decisive?
I smoked crack before, you know what I mean? I tried it out. It wasn't for me. It was just a little too gnarly and made me feel really dirty. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, when you're sitting there and you're just trying to tattoo somebody and it's just like so heavy on the crack that it's just like, dude, I'm getting dizzy just being in this room.
Secondhand, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. It just seemed like especially like all those, you know, like all the Scores girls and like all those
Scores girls had so much money.
Big time
Those girls
fucking
made so much cash.
strip clubs in New York City, man. They all were just such crackheads.
Huh.
And I was just like, that was my only thing
Right.
that I was just like, and eventually kind of stopped doing those late night tattoo parties just because I was just like, man, I can't deal with that fucking secondhand crack smoke, man. It was just...
You're more adventurous than me. I never
Starting
like
to
went
get
to
to
their
me.
place, but they'd come in the shop. You know, a lot of times we'd like stay open late and like
You
lock
just have
the
to
doors.
tattoo one of them, and then you end up knowing all of them. You know what I mean? But I would do so many of those, like, those parties, things like that. And that's what kind of, you know, I started doing them with the guy who is tattooing me also. And we would go up to New York. We'd go out to Jersey.
But I'm assuming
and
you'd
do
walk out
pep-
with good money. Like it was worth doing it.
But you would get fucked up too with all the people too, because they'd want you to like partake. Like we used to go to Connecticut all the time, and out in the middle of fucking nowhere, man. And like, yeah, I don't know, man. It was one of those things. But yeah, besides the crack, I really like tattooing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Strippers in general, they're always fun, and you know that you're gonna get a bunch more clientele because everyone kind of sees them naked, and so they'll see your tattoo. And
it's gonna get some airtime.
Yeah.
It's like tattooing bartenders and hairdressers to get more business.
The tip or die, the classic.
The tip or die, yeah.
You ever done one of those?
No.
Oh yeah.
Like a tip or die tattoo? No way. That's a good one.
Dude, that was a classic on the strippers.
Yeah. I did. I mean, I tattooed a lot of, you know, it's funny because like people ask about tattoos, be like, oh, have you ever tattooed, you know, like a butthole or something? And yeah, I did some fun stuff on some fun anatomy there. Which
Did
is
you
like,
tattoo a
but
butthole?
It's not fun. Yeah, I've tattooed a few. You know, I did flames coming out of buttholes, spiderweb buttholes.
That's cool.
Butterfly buttholes. But it's funny because I feel like it's so many times I've like ridden in a New York City taxi cab and the driver would be like, oh, you're a tattooer? Like, do you tattoo a lot of niggas? But like, tattooing a butthole is not fun. You know what I mean? Like, I know, like, sure, I mean, buttholes can be a lot of fun, but it's not like, but like, I'm working and I'm really like, I'm trying to make this thing look good. And like, usually, you know, like, it's not often done of sound mind and it's fucking hard. Like it's like it's a challenging canvas to work on.
I was just talking about how because I just tattooed
Especially like straight lines on the spiderweb. Anyway,
I just tattooed a guy's butt last Friday.
Really?
Or Sunday actually. I came in on Sunday and tattooed.
Like around the bullseye? Or like
No, just on there, but I was
Yeah.
it reminded me cuz they were asking about butt tattoos and I was like, yeah, the first time I tattooed this dude's butt, he had toilet paper coming out the back. And I was just
Did you
like,
tell him?
Yeah. I was
Okay,
like,
good.
Dude. I was like, you might want to go.
But it's probably because you wanted to be courteous and went and wiped right beforehand.
You would
like,
think that, but dude, like, because I used to pierce too back in the day.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised, man. Like, these people, like, you know, would come in and they want something pierced or tattooed in a weird spot, and it's like filthy.
At least wash it off beforehand.
Like, I remember all the time, like, kids when everyone was, you know, wearing flip-flops in New York City, and kids would come in and want their feet tattooed, and they've been walking around
Yeah.
all day in New York City and just had like the filthiest little
sunburnt
hobbit
little
feet,
like
basically.
Canal Street brown, gray.
I'm like,
layer.
okay, if you get a tattoo right now on your foot and go walking around, you're definitely gonna fucking get something. So
Yeah.
But yeah, man. First time I ever tattooed a butt, I had toilet paper. I told him to go clean up, man.
Yeah.
And I was just like, God, I'm never doing this again.
Unless it's a girl. Turned someone away.
Guys are just gross.
Yeah. I can't remember ever turning someone away for hygiene reasons. I've definitely had some where I've had some fragrant clients.
I really want to get my butthole tattooed, though.
Really? What are you going to put on your butthole?
I don't know.
What would you do? You always have good ideas. I feel like you would come. By the way, the other day on Instagram, one of the best cover-ups that you did this guy, he had a name tattooed on his neck, and to cover it up, you wrote Nevermind over it. But not just any Nevermind. It was Nevermind from the Nirvana album, like in that same font. I was like, that's one of the best tattoo ideas. So it was, okay, what are we doing on your butthole?
I don't know. I'm just gonna like get something funny, I think.
I know, but I love your brain.
I thought I thought it would be really, really cool. I don't know if I could sit for it because it would be excruciatingly painful. But I thought it'd be really cool to have like an actual like piece of shit like on like a hot rod, like Rat Fink style. just like
driving out of your butt.
Driving out of my butt, you know.
That's amazing.
That'd be
Would
cool.
it be like a piece of shit with the wheels and smoke?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Rat Fink style.
Yeah.
Just like a turd tearing out of your butt. That's just pretty good.
Like a mean ass fucking
and just do like
shit.
The rubber tire tracks going like right up to
Or the classic, one of the tattoos that I've always adored and I never have gotten it yet is from Mike Malone's Flash, the shithead. You remember that guy?
No, I mean I remember Mike Malone. I don't remember the shithead.
So he did this he did it a bunch in his Flash, but it's just like this little shithead guy, and it looks like a soft serve.
Oh yeah,
brown shit.
Like the classic swirly.
But he's
poo.
like got little overalls on, and he's so cute.
Aww.
And I've always wanted that shithead guy.
Would you get it like coming out of your butt, or that's just like a
poop
tattoo you need to get? Yeah.
But
I like the hot rod coming out of your butthole. That's a good one.
Or exit only.
Exit only. Yeah. That's the classic. Trying to think if I've seen a good butthole tattoo. I mean, there's that one British guy that has like the whole fox hunting scene. It's like his whole back is this like very classical British like fox hunt with them on the horses with like the shotguns and the dogs running down, and then his butthole has a little fox tail coming out of it. So it looks like the fox ran into his butthole.
That is so cool.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a lot of production because he got his whole back piece, and the punchline to it is this little tail coming out of his butt.
I wonder how many people he's shown the tail to.
I mean, I imagine you get that much trouble, you're going to want to get credit for it.
Yeah.
I'm sure 2 drinks in, that guy's dropping
If I got
trout.
my butthole tattooed, I would do everything there is to like clean my butt. Because I'd be so fucking embarrassed. You know what I mean? And it had to be like one of my diehard homies.
Right.
Like, dude, okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get to see my,
We're getting
the
intimate.
most sacred thing on my body that I'm the most shy about.
All right. Let's go draw stuff up.